Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, I walk around the neighborhood, feeling blessed.
Alright, let's take a look and see how well you did on this first study guide, what we did for yesterday. All right, so problem number one says calculate x. You must include the steps in your solution and the definitions and or conjectures that you used. Oh goodness. Okay. Well, I've done most of that work here. So all right, so we've got a triangle, and this line right here is going along the base of the triangle, and it's extending the base of the triangle so that you've got a couple of different exterior angles that are created. You've got x here, and you've got 126 degrees here. Now, we're going to be able to use a couple of different theorems to figure out the measure of angle A here, which I wrote that AN. And we're also going to be able to figure out this measure right here. And once we know what this is, we can figure out what that is, and then we can figure out that. Or actually, with the exterior angle of a triangle theorem, this is going to be equal to the sum of those two. So once we figure out what A is, then we just add those together, and we'll have this answer. So let's figure out what A is. Um, First of all, the measure of angle A, since it's supplementary to this 126-degree angle, see they form a straight line, and we're just going to take 180 minus 126. That means that angle A must measure 54 degrees. So I'll just go ahead and write that in. That's a little sloppy. Let's not do that. We've got it here. Okay. So since this is 54 and that's 58, we know that the exterior angle of a triangle theorem states that the exterior angle is going to be equal to the sum of the two remote interior angles. So we add these two guys together, which means that angle X has to be 112 degrees. Now I can check that. Let's do that. Let's see if we can verify that this is indeed 112. So if this is 112 degrees, that means that this has to be, what is that, 68 degrees, because the two of them have to add up to 180. And we said that this one had to be 54 degrees. So I bet if I add 58, 54, and 68, that's going to add up to 100. Let's see. 58 plus 54 plus 68, 180 degrees. We got it. So we feel good about declaring that as our answer. All right, let's look at some angle relationships. It says angle 1 and angle 7. Well, here's angle 1, here's angle 7. They're both on the inside of the parallel lines, and they're on opposite sides of the transversal. So this qualifies as alternate interior angles. We know that they have the same measure because they're alternate interior angles of a transversal intersecting parallel lines. If these two lines were not parallel, then we would not say they were congruent. This problem doesn't ask us to determine whether they're congruent or not, just to identify them as alternate interior, so the answer is C. Angles 2 and 3, they are angles that are across from each other when two lines intersected. So by definition, those are vertical angles, and those are also congruent to each other. Whatever their measure is, two's measure, you can figure out, if you know one of these, you can figure out all four of them, because you know the vertical angles congruent, and then you know that the adjacent angles will be supplementary. Angles 6 and 7, there you go. There's an example of two angles that are adjacent to each other at an intersection, and because they're an intersection of two lines, that means that these two adjacent angles add up to 180 degrees, which is the definition for supplementary angles. And then number 5, this is similar to that check for understanding that we had last week. I've changed the degrees a little bit, but everything else has stayed the same. So let's just work through the process. I'm going to work as well as I can. I'm going to try and get these guys taken care of first, and then I'll work down into here. Okay, so first of all, angle A. Angle A is supplementary to a 60-degree angle, which means they have to add up to 180 degrees, so this must be 120 degrees. I could then go to angle B and say, well, since they're vertical, they also have to be 120 degrees, but then B is also supplementary to 60 degrees, so you could say that as well. There's different ways to prove that this is 120 degrees. Angle C, this is a transversal. This is a parallel line. this is a parallel line. So technically, even though this doesn't show this going through, this angle is alternate interior to that angle. They're both obtuse angles. They look like they're the same measure. They are the same measure, simply because this line here is parallel to that line there, making this a transversal of parallel lines, and the alternate interior angles have the same measure. So by that, we know A is 120 degrees, so that means that C also has to be 120 degrees. Angle D. This is supplementary to this 160-degree angle, which means it must be 20 degrees. And angle E, you could say, is either vertical to D, making it 20 degrees, or it's supplementary to 160 degrees, making it 20 degrees as well. And then F is vertical to the 160 degrees, so that's got to be 160 degrees. All right, angle G. What's the story of that? Well, remember how we said that this line is parallel to that line, which makes this line here a transversal, and the alternate interior angles are going to be equivalent to each other. They're congruent. So whatever D was, that also has to be the measure for angle G. And now the only thing we haven't gotten is angle H. So we know, let's see, let me just write in these angles that I have so far. We knew that this one was 120 degrees. We knew this one was 120 degrees. We know this guy's 120 degrees. We knew this guy was 20 degrees. This one was 20 degrees. This one was 160 degrees. This one was 20 degrees. So you could either say A, H, and G are supplementary, so this one has to be 180 minus 140, or you could say H, C, and D make up all three angles of a triangle. That's what I did. Triangle sum theorem says all three of those have to add up to 180 degrees. So I took 120 plus 20, which is 140, and I took that away from 180. And that's how we got 100 or 40 degrees. So I hope you found that relatively easy. You know, number 5 and number 1 are probably going to be the ones that give the most people the trouble. This is what this entire chapter test is going to be about as it relates to angle pair relationships. Know these terms. Look through your M&Ms. Look through the notes that I gave you last week on the video, and make sure you understand how to do this. Okay, tomorrow we'll have our second study guide for you to work on, or actually today. I'm recording this yesterday, but you're seeing it today. Work through the next study guide, and then we'll check it on Thursday, and then Thursday will be a day for you to prepare for the chapter test, the first chapter test, which is going to be on Friday in the form of a Google form. So good luck with everything, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Hey, feeling good, like I should.